Welcome to RotoWire Fantasy Football Live. We are nearing the end of the season, a little more than a week until Super Bowl 58, but we have some really good stuff planned for you. First of all, I've got 36 pages of Super Bowl notes, and this one I break down the offensive lines player by player, run blocking, pass blocking. We'll see how they match up with the front seven of the opposing team. We'll go into the cornerback matchups. We'll have a lot more detail on this game. With one game, we can get to the greatest level of detail possible. Also, I have what's called Propapalooza. I put down probably 30 props, didn't count them, but on those I give you the reason why to bet one, the reason why not to bet it, and then my take on them lets you kind of see them from a critical standpoint so you can make your best decision if you're looking to make money on Super Bowl 58. If you want access to those free notes, go to my X at Jim Coventry NFL. It's pinned to my profile. You'll just like and retweet, and then I will DM you a link to read those notes, and they give you plenty of time to get all set for Super Bowl 58. And remember, we'll continue this show through the off season, but Monday and Tuesday upcoming, we have a massive pair of shows for you. On Monday at the usual time, 11 a.m. Eastern, where you're watching right now, we'll begin our Super Bowl marathon with 58 fantasy analysts for Super Bowl 58, giving you takes on the game, thoughts about the season. And then on Tuesday, we'll be back at 5 p.m. Eastern for an evening session. But between the two shows, yes, we're going to get you 58 analysts. So make sure you're tuning in where you're watching right now. That'll be blasted out on RotoWire, Twitter, and socials as well. Finally, if you have Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Channel, I'll be on Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 3 Eastern this weekend and Super Bowl weekend. Please join me for that. And remember, RotoWire, we got you covered. We've got fantasy and gambling content, every sport imaginable, college basketball, golf, NASCAR, bowling. We have the best baseball on the planet. Free 2-day trial. Go to rotowire.com/Jim and check us out. No credit card needed. All right, let's get into Super Bowl 58. So the line in this game, 49ers -2. It's kind of hanging there. There's a little early movement, slight, but it's kind of sticking at 2 right now. I'm sure as the bigger betting gets in the week of the game, we might see another shift in that, but I don't think it's going to be a big shift right now. And there are a lot of people that feel, well, look, I mean, Patrick Mahomes, how is he going to lose? People think the Chiefs should be the favorite here, and maybe they're right. But I think we have the same deal like with Baltimore. Baltimore was the favorite. They were the better team. Look, the Chiefs know how to win. And you can't blast them for that, right? They know how to win big games. And the Ravens, look, we could say whatever we want. I don't think they were prepared for that game from a coaching standpoint. They didn't attack the weaknesses of the Chiefs by running the ball. They came in, we're going to pass against one of the better pass defenses in the league. Anyway, I just thought there were tactical errors. I think that Baltimore cost themselves an opportunity, but the Chiefs, as always, you give them an opening and they take it, and they took it, and here they are, and they deserve to be here. They did what they had to do. 49ers, look, the playoffs, they haven't played great. They played the Packers in that rainstorm, and the Packers were the better team in that game. Tracy, welcome. And but look, the Packers were the better game, but the 49ers came out and they got that last drive, scored the touchdown and won. And then against the Lions for much of that game, obviously you watched it. The Lions were playing better, but then the 49ers made the plays just like they did against the Packers. They needed to make to win. They got the stop. Maybe the fumble was lucky. Maybe there was some calls on the other side by Dan Campbell. Whatever it happened, the 49ers found their way and they earned their spot just like the Chiefs did. So that said, 49ers haven't been playing great, but I thought that both the Lions and the Packers were very well positioned offensively to be able to do well against the 49ers. When the Packers had Aaron Jones, they were a balanced offense. They didn't have superstar receivers, but they had a whole group of them, and they were so well coached and schemed open. It was a bad matchup for the 49ers, and I thought that against the Lions that the 49ers would do great defending the middle of the field. They didn't. They got shredded. But that was the strength of the Lions, and the Lions had that running game. So again, the 49ers have not played good defense in the playoffs, but both of those offenses were set to play against them. We'll talk about how the Chiefs match up with them. On the other hand, the Chiefs, we keep hearing it and we're not going to argue with it. This is the best defense the Chiefs have had with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. And it's been very useful to them this year. Yes, the Bills scored points, and had they not missed that field goal, we're looking at a 27-27 tie late. They missed it, whatever. But let's get to the Chiefs side of the ball and break this thing down a little bit. Let's start with the running game. So we've learned against the 49ers, they're very good against the pass, although we've seen both the Lions and the Packers move the ball on them, but they're not so great against the run. And we saw in the Packers game and going into the end of the regular season, we saw outside running was very successful on many occasions against the 49ers. And then we saw the Lions. The Lions have a great offensive line. And even with Jonah Jackson out and Frank Ragnow banged up, they played extremely well, and they really brought it to the 49ers, and they ran inside and outside with great success. But usually the outside run is their weakest. But like we said, we'll break this down. So Isaiah Pacheco, he's an excellent downhill runner, and the beauty of his game is simple. Usually when you play the Chiefs, you've got to worry about Patrick Mahomes. No matter what the receiver core looks like, you know he's Patrick Mahomes. So you can never overcommit to stop the pass. The run. You can't overcommit to stop the run. And so what that means is you've got to leave some defenders spaced out and back. Well, Isaiah Pacheco runs with a lot of aggression, and he hits the hole quickly. And if the linebackers are back a little bit, those are free yards, and Isaiah Pacheco is excellent at taking them. Now, for what it's worth, his vision as a runner is not good. And that's why you don't see him take a lot of these runs from the second level into 40-yard runs and bigger, because there are opportunities with vision where he could make a move beyond that, but that's not his strength as a runner. But he knows what his strength is, and it's very good to help the Chiefs have some success. Now, with the 49ers, the whole goal for them, Joe Thuney, the left guard, he has a pectoral injury. He missed the AFC Championship game. It would seem very unlikely that he'll play. And that will be a bit of a limiting injury because they do need him, and he's a better pass blocker than a run blocker. But again, he's a starting lineman, and that would be helpful in this game. Now, the 49ers, their weakest run defenders are their interior linemen, and that would be Eric Armstead and Javon Hargrave. Those are their weakest run defenders. And but if they can create enough disruption up front, and they can, draw double teams on the one or two of them at times from the interior, because the center's got to shift with the two guards. So if they can occupy all three of those linemen together, that does free up Fred Warner or Dre Greenlaw to, get some slack up against the run. So they really want to try to get those two of those linemen to commit, to a double. But otherwise, they can get one to the second level, and that really would help the running game. Now, remember, Pacheco in the playoffs, he's only averaging 4.03 yards per carry. He has not been running for great yardage. And so the Bills kind of clamped on him a little bit, and the Ravens were able to clamp down a little bit. And so it's not like he's running for this 5-6 yards per carry. And so Pacheco is very good as part of the overall offense. They need him to be a piece of it. I don't think the advantage in the run game against the 49ers is like the one we saw with the Lions. And then the Packers, again, with Aaron Jones with fresh legs, and again, with the passing attack, it was like a uniquely positioned situation. I don't think Pacheco's that player in this game. He's going to get 24 carries for big yardage. We've seen him like with a 24 for a 90-ish in most recent game. And so he's going to help, but I don't think he's the reason if the Chiefs are going to win that they're going to win. He's just going to help the offense stay on schedule. Now, the passing game. Look, we're no shade ever on Patrick Mahomes. The dude is put up numbers in his 8 seasons that only Tom Brady can, kind of work with. But even numbers wise, other than if Brady has a lead on Super Bowls by 1 through 8 years, if Mahomes wins this game, they're tied even in that category. So that's obviously how great Mahomes has been. Now, during the season, though, it's not been the Patrick Mahomes we've seen in past seasons. He rarely throws more than one touchdown pass in a game. He's not throwing more than 250 yards with much frequency at all. So this offense, really, after their bye, they played the Eagles, and they lost that game. Remember, that was the game where they threw Justin Watson 11 passes. I still cannot understand what Andy Reid's idea was after that game. So that would have been like week 13, I think. From that time on, what the Chiefs have done is they have made the offense very focused. It's either you run with Pacheco, or you throw it to Kelce, or you throw it to Rashee Rice. There are a few targets that go to other players, but you see that Rice and Kelce are flirting with 10 targets in many games. And so it's become a hyper-focused passing attack. Now, when Miami played Kansas City in the playoffs, they were a banged up defense. They were missing a lot of people. They had no pass rush. They had secondary injuries. They had linebacker injuries. It was a mess of a defense, and it was in sub-zero temperatures. So, obviously they did not show up for that game. They didn't have the personnel. And then they played the Ravens. And there was 3 games, I should. The Bills game. And even in the Bills game, Pacheco did a little more as a runner there. But again, they got Kelce heavily involved. Rashee Rice didn't quite have a crazy game, but he caught a lot of passes. The yardage wasn't great. But again, it was them, and they scored enough points to win. In the Ravens game, you'll remember that early, they caught the Ravens off guard. They were throwing a lot of screens to the outside. They were getting the ball in the receiver's hands quickly. And they also, realized that Travis Kelce was not being defended by like any one player. Sometimes it was Arthur Millette. Sometimes it was Kyle Hamilton. Sometimes it was Brandon Stevens. But the thing was, there was no plan to sell out to stop Kelce. It was like wherever he's lined up, the player that's near him, that's who's defending him. And they paid terribly for it when Kelce had 96 yards and a touchdown in the first half alone on 9, caught all 9 targets, right? Well, so Kelce's putting up the 3 good games in the playoffs. It'll be interesting to see what happens here, but I'll get to Kelce a little bit later. But with Mahomes, as I'm pointing out, it's basically those are the guys, and we've seen in the playoffs, he will take a couple shots to MVS, and that may be beneficial here. And again, we'll get to the receiver specifically. And let's start with Rashee Rice. So Rice, it's usually 9 to 11 targets in the majority of games. Now he plays up to nearly half of his snaps in the slot, and it's going to be an interesting matchup here on how Rashee Rice is handled. When he's on the outside, I will not be surprised to see Charvarius Ward of the 49ers locked up on him. I assume they realize he's the only wide receiver threat they have to worry about. You're not worrying about Valdez-Scantling. You're not worrying about Justin Watson. So my guess is that if they're coaching this up smart, Ward is following him. Now, when Rice goes into the slot, you have a lot of Diamondor Lenoir. He kicks into the slot. He plays outside and inside. But if they're not, and the Chiefs do run a lot of 2 tight end and 3 tight end sets. So again, I shouldn't even say I know who's going to cover him when he's in the slot. But overall, their safeties can cover, their linebackers can cover. But Rice would have a bit of an edge when he's on the inside. So I do think he can move it. But the 49ers, other than against the Lions, they're very difficult to pass on over the middle. So again, this is not a great matchup for Rashee Rice here. In the playoffs, his yardage has not been insane. So there's that. And then, like I said earlier, I think what you want to do with either Valdez-Scantling or Justin Watson, Ambry Thomas is the mark. He's the cornerback for the 49ers. And when he's on the field, that's often when they get into the 3 cornerback looks. When he's on the field, you want him on an outside receiver. He gives up big plays. He takes pass interference calls. You want to get shots downfield when he's out there because good things will often happen. And it might even require Valdez-Scantling hanging onto the ball because he could get interfered with because Ambry Thomas does that. So that's something that we very much have to consider as we're looking at that. But overall, the wide receiver room, it's about Rashee Rice right now, and they just a little bit from the others, and it may not be much at all, but there could be a timely shot. Now, we talked about Kelce, and I said earlier, the Ravens did not have a plan for him. I still to this day cannot understand, especially in this version of the offense, when it's him and Rice are the only guys to worry about, that defense aren't saying, all right, you're done. I don't know what the 49ers are going to do. And I know this year we don't see Fred Warner just locked down on top tight ends. That they usually trust their entire defense to handle it. You would have to think, and they might not do it. Again, I have no proof to go beyond this. I have to think that the 49ers are serious about winning this game. You're going to say, you know what? Travis Kelce is playing amazing. He still is not the player he was. And we know he shredded Buffalo at A.J. Klein on him, and that was no problem. And we know he shredded the Ravens when they put cornerbacks on him occasionally, Kyle Hamilton, but cornerbacks, which that's a mismatch for Kelce, especially on the inside targets, right? So I'm taking Fred Warner, and I'm saying, look, I know you're inside a lot. I am putting you on Kelce. If the 49ers do this, 4 for 40, that's probably an upside game for Kelsey, because I do not see a world where Kelsey is consistently beating Fred Warner. But maybe the 49ers don't do that. Maybe they do what the Ravens did. Whoever's on you's on you. And then they let Kelsey just bleed you out. Just because if they do that, Mahomes will constantly get him the ball because he knows right away who's defending him and who has the advantage. So this is a big chess match, and this is really going to tell us a lot about this game. The 49ers have the personnel to deal with him. And they could even do something crazy. They could even say Charvarius Ward. They could even decide to go, and that wouldn't be traditional or typical, but they could put him on Kelsey and really make it a difficult matchup. Again, I don't know what they're doing, so I can only say what I would do if I was a coach. But right now, you kind of assume Kelsey's going to have his solid game unless the 49ers take an aggressive stance to say, Patrick Mahomes, you are going to beat us with somebody else, but you're not going to beat us with Travis Kelsey today. And they can do that. But again, will they? And I've been surprised in the postseason how some of the teams have not really made, these great hyper-specific game plans like we've seen in some other years to really make a team beat you left-handed. But this is what we will find out. Now, overall on offense for the Chiefs. So I still go back to that second half against the Ravens. The Ravens tightened up, and the Chiefs could not move the chains. It was literally 3 and out, over, rinse, repeat. It was not good. Once the Ravens settled in on the game plan and they figured it out, they could have had that game plan going in. They didn't, but once they did, they really clamped down. When Chiefs played the Bills version of this defense is not a great defense right now. They had lost players. It was a good defense, not a great defense. The 49ers are not a great defense. They have a lot of talent. The pass rush can get home. Here's the one thing I want to point out. The weaknesses in pass protection on the Kansas City offensive line are the tackles. Donovan Smith and Juwan Taylor. They are the weaker ones. The interior linemen are better pass protectors than the exterior. And now we got Nick Bosa and we've got Chase Young. But we know Patrick Mahomes is the king at breaking contain. And so now you've got this going on. Yes, they may be able to get pressure, but here's the deal. Mahomes knows how to beat pressure like nobody else. So I'm not bullish on the Nick Bosa, sack prop, even though it's 0.25. I don't know. I'm really not looking there because Mahomes just doesn't take sacks. And that's kind of the way it is. Interior, again, if Tooney's out, he's a great pass protector, and that will hurt against Hargrave and Armstead. Eric Armstead doesn't get the numbers. So as a pass rusher, he literally is elite, but he crushes the pocket, but he doesn't always get to the quarterback. Hargrave is a game wrecker. And again, if Tooney misses, that will be a bit of a problem. But Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith are very, very good in pass protection in the middle. So they definitely can hold their own here. But all that said, they're going to need Pacheco to get something going. They're going to need him to do a little better at 4 yards per carry he's getting in the playoffs. They need him to get closer to 5 here. They need him to help get him in good down and distance situations. The Chiefs also need the 49ers not to have a great plan for either Rashee Rice or Travis Kelsey. If one of those players is left in an advantageous matchup, I assume Mahomes will pound that over and over. As I said earlier, when they can isolate a downfield receiver on Ambry Thomas, they're going to want to do that and take a shot or two to loosen the defense up or maybe get a connection as well. And I'm not sold on 49ers defensive coordinator Steve Wilks. I don't know that what I've seen from his coaching that he is going to come out with this fabulous game plan. So, but with 2 weeks to prepare, it could be a collective discussion, and maybe they do come up with some answers. I think, though, this is not a Kansas City team that scores a lot of points. I don't see them going for really more than 20 points in this game. I just don't see a scenario where they're going to consistently move the ball against this defense. A lot of underneath stuff, a lot of short passes. Kelsey's shorter passes. Rice is a lot of shorter passes. And I just think if you're using that against the 49ers and that's your recipe for success, I don't think there's a lot of yards after the catch. The 49ers are excellent at tackling. They're linebackers and safeties, very good. Their corners are very good tacklers, and they don't really give you a lot of run after the catch with regularity. So I don't think there's going to be long, sustained drives here because Patrick Mahomes is running the team. They might be able able to get somewhat near that 20-point threshold because he could find ways of broken plays, make plays happen. I don't know how much yardage Mahomes is running for here because of the speed of those 49er linebackers. That's going to be a difficult one if once he gets on the move, they could track him down very, very quickly. So that'll be interesting. But again, I'm thinking 20 points is probably about the ceiling for the offense, unless they get, a defensive play and that either scores or sets them up for a short field. I just don't see it as a big scoring day for them. Now, the 49ers side of the football, look, Kyle Shanahan, we know he loves the running game, and we know he can always put together an amazing passing attack. When he's game planning for this one, and he is at a genius level of coach, right? Sometimes his in-game decisions aren't the best, and there's that. But I do think in this game, the 49ers have to come in and say, look, this game is about Christian McCaffrey. The Chiefs are not a good run defense. There are teams that haven't run much against them. But if you look back at the running numbers by players over the season, there are players with lesser carries who have done well. When the Raiders played them twice, both Josh Jacobs in the game he was healthy, and then Zamir White in the game he was healthy, they both got the ball and they did extremely well. I'm going to say that White had 143 yards against them. That was a long run late in that game. But my point is this: 49ers have the Shanahan zone scheme system, and McCaffrey is an ace at running that. And again, I don't know with the weapons the 49ers have that the Chiefs can sell out to stop McCaffrey, because you've got Debo, you've got Ayuk, you've got Kittle. And at any point, if you're going to oversell to stop McCaffrey, a play action and taking advantage of that could be a really, really big problem. And I have to think, look, Brock Purdy's been a nice story and he's had a lot of success, but I have to think Shanahan goes into this game saying, you know what? I really need to put this game on the back of McCaffrey and then use Purdy situationally. If I can get play action, again, if I can get a shot here or there, if I can get some run after the catch. And if you look at Purdy's completions, he doesn't have a lot of game with well over 20 completions. This is a running team. They're the slowest paced offense in the league. So they run like some of the fewest plays. You'll see a lot of 55 play games for the 49ers in their season game logs. And that's going to be it. And I think there's going to be a lot of running by McCaffrey. They're going to go to the left, I think, a lot behind Trent Williams in this game. This game is for the marbles. We see him running to the right. Usually he's a little less efficient, but you test both sides. But I really think you make this about getting Trent Williams involved, and you run behind him. And you just utilize that all-world talent he has, to bludgeon them. And I think that's going to be a big advantage. And I think McCaffrey, the linebackers are decent in coverage. They're not great. The safeties, that would play more with the tight end. But the linebackers can be had in coverage. So whether they're using McCaffrey in the dump off game, or they're using the design screen, or they're running, I think he has to be the engine here. I believe in this matchup, he can consistently move the chains and get big plays as well. And I think that's the way they're going to want to go. And again, I don't think the Chiefs are going to score so many points that they have to become pass heavy. So now we get to the quarterback, and my point again with Purdy, I just don't think on this stage that's going to be the plan, saying, Purdy, we're loading you up in this one. I just don't think that's the case. I don't like the matchup by Ayuk on the L'Jarius Sneed or Trent McDuffie. I think those are not good matchups for him. Now, Ayuk is a superstar, and Ayuk can win, but I don't know they want Purdy challenging those corners. And now Debo Samuel certainly in the middle of the field does his damage. And again, with the middling coverage ability of the safeties and the linebackers, when you get him in the middle of the field, you can do a lot of creative things with him. We'll see how involved they get him. Kittle, he maybe need to block a bit. And now Charles Omena, who tore his ACL, he's a pass rusher for the Chiefs. He tore his ACL. So that's going to put a little downgrade on the pass rush. You got Chris Jones on the inside, who's a game wrecker. And you have George Karlaftis, who's been coming on a bit in his second year as an outside pass rusher. So that's been helpful for the Chiefs as well. But overall, they're not a huge pass rush. They'll blitz. But if McCaffrey is owning the game, then Spagnuolo, the great defensive coordinator of the Chiefs, is going to probably have to come into this game saying, I've got to back off the blitz a bit, but I also have to be respectful of the receiving weapons. So again, he's in a real tough situation here, because he can't afford to sell out to stop McCaffrey because he will get roasted most likely by Kittle. Kittle's the one, play action. That'll be the killer. And then, of course, Debo, if the players are creeping up and you get him to the second level on a slant, it could be lights out for them. So it's going to be a very delicate, balanced game plan for Spagnuolo. But they're going to hope to somehow get Purdy into passing situations where the run is out of the equation because that's what they want to make him uncomfortable. Now, in terms of the offensive line, for run blocking, it's more the scheme. They're not a good offensive line in terms of talent, but it's the Shanahan scheme, and then there's Trent Williams on the left side, and then they'll put in an extra tight end. Their Kittle will block, and so they have that going for them. And that scheme does work, and I don't see the Chiefs having answers. But pass blocking now again, Trent Williams, elite among elite. But the rest of the line, it can be had. And Chris Jones is a defensive tackle. He plays mostly on the interior. And if there are passing downs, he has an ability to really take over in the middle of the field. And it'll be great to see what he's able to do if there are passing downs because he has a phenomenal matchup for himself against any of the interior offensive linemen of the 49ers. Now, I'm sure they will plan to double him, get four hands on him whenever possible, and that could help. But the other interior, Derek Nottie, he is out. He's on injured reserve now. He'd missed the entire playoffs. He had triceps injury. And Wharton is a guy who's come in, and it's going to be a downgrade. But neither Nottie nor Wharton are superstars in the line. So I don't think they're going to really help Chris Jones a whole lot. So overall, with the passing game, again, I said with Ayuk, I don't think a cornerback matchup is good for him. And I mentioned earlier, Debo, they're going to have to get him into space. Kittle, you never know what his targets are going to be, right? Because how much is he going to block? How much is he going to be like a decoy? And then are they going to get him involved on the play action? He's an X factor in this game. And just like you knew at fantasy, you never know when you start them every week because you never know when the eruption game is coming. But you also never know when the 3 target games coming and the 2 catches for 15 yards. So you never really know that. He does have opportunities to make big plays in this game, especially off the play action that I mentioned earlier. And I think that's where their advantage lasts. So overall, with the 49ers on offense, I'm going to go back to my point. I do think this is a Christian McCaffrey-centric game, and I don't think the Chiefs have an answer for him. I think when we're talking about Patrick Mahomes as the MVP potential player, yes, if the Chiefs win, he'll be the MVP. But I think the 49ers don't want to make this a Purdy versus Mahomes matchup. I think they want to make it a McCaffrey versus Mahomes. And I know they don't play on the same side of the ball, understand that. But I mean, in terms of who are the offensive stars. And I think now when we're saying if McCaffrey's running my offense as opposed to Mahomes with the weapons he has in the shorter passing game, I don't see a reason why McCaffrey can't lead them and have that massive game, 175 scrimmage yards, 2 touchdowns plus. It's totally in the range. And I think if they lean heavily on McCaffrey, I believe they can get themselves well over the 20-point mark. They might not be able to, hit that 28 point. They need a couple things to go their way. I mentioned in my notes that, there's a path to them get to the 28. But I think overall, as I'm predicting this game, I don't see it going quite there. I'm going to predict my score in a minute. But before I make the prediction, here's what I want to tell you. I use 3 words, and this is in my notes too, at Jim Coventry NFL. You can get those notes by just tweeting and retweeting and liking on my pinned profile, the game note link. So when you're predicting this game, but Patrick Mahomes, you can do all the X's and O's that you want. You could break this game down left, right, and sideways. But Patrick Mahomes has proven that he can overcome the odds. Look, I was a Bulls season ticket holder, and I was at every home game that Michael Jordan played in the playoffs. And I saw him crush the dreams of teams that were definitely better. And I know a lot of you might be younger, but there was a Cleveland Cavaliers team that was up and coming. And it was right before the Pistons got hot. And Michael Jordan knocked them out of the playoffs. I remember that. And they were like a stumbling block. And there was a team that they weren't ever going to be able to get to where they wanted to go because Michael Jordan was the stopper. And Patrick Mahomes is crushing a lot of people's dreams because he finds ways to win. You can't always quantify it. He has this superstar status and he just knows how to win big games. So anything I predict, but Patrick Mahomes. So when I pick a score or a team, you've got to consider the Patrick Mahomes factor. Now, I do say in this game, and without repeating a whole lot, I think McCaffrey can go for 170 combined yards in this game. And I think he can get 2 touchdowns in this game, and he might push for a third if they just lean on him heavily the whole way through. And on the Chiefs side, I do have to think it's such a limited scope of players. And I think the 49ers won't worry about getting beaten by Pacheco. I think they can have a plan for Kelsey. They can have a plan for Rice. And if they just limit them significantly, not even shut them down, I just don't know how and who else Patrick Mahomes beats you with. We've seen it. They're not scoring a ton of points. And I do think this is going to be a struggle for them. So I am picking the 49ers to win this game 23-16. But if you're betting, remember these 3 words, but Patrick Mahomes. So you're betting this game at your own risk going against Patrick Mahomes because it's usually a losing proposition, like we used to say with Tom Brady. But it's Tom Brady. You could and sometimes Brady lost. And sometimes he did. And sometimes Mahomes loses. But just factor that in because it's not quantifiable. Now, here's some bets I like. I do like the under of 47.5. Because here's why. Now, the 49ers games, listen to this. They have gone under 48, which 47, I think, is go under that, in 11 of 19 games. And since the bye, they've gone under in 7 of 11 games. Remember, they run at the slowest pace in the league. And in the 2 recent games that they went over 48, they played with big deficits, the Baltimore and Detroit games. I'm sorry. Right. The Detroit game and they were the big deficits. So those games went over for that reason. Now, the Chiefs, they've gone under 48 in 8 of their last 9. And 11 of their last 13, and on the season, 16 out of 20. So they've gone under 48 most of the time. This has been a common thread for these teams not to score that many points. And I think both defenses can put enough of a limit on the offenses that we're not going to see a shootout here. And I do expect a lot of running of the football. I expect it's going to shorten the game. It's going to limit plays. I don't anticipate either team getting a huge lead, so that doesn't force a shootout. And the 49ers, like I said, they played the slowest pace. The Chiefs, they're better than middle. They're 12th slowest pace. So it's not like either of these teams run it very, very fast. Now, if you think a team's going to get out to a big lead, then you may go with the over because if you think there's that shootout idea, but I just don't see it right now, especially at 47.5. 47 is a key number and it's over that. Now the public's betting over. I did a poll on it. We had a few hundred votes. 53% went with the over. Vegas loves it because that's exactly what they want. They want like similar action on both sides. The public's going over on this by a small percentage. But again, this has been the season of the under, and these 2 teams profile as an under game here. Now, MVP bet. Of course, it's that the Chiefs win. It's going to be Mahomes, right? I mean, can Kelsey get it? Yes. But he would have to have a ridiculous game, and I don't know against the 49ers he does. So if they win, you're betting Mahomes. And actually, if you want the Chiefs to win, in your mind, Mahomes is going to be the MVP in this scenario. Betting him to win is better odds by a little bit than the money line on taking the Chiefs. So there's that, right? Now, if you think the 49ers are going to win, now we know quarterbacks win this award, but if the team, Shanahan, leans on McCaffrey, he's plus 475. And if you believe that that's what they're going to do, they're going to hang this game on McCaffrey. Purdy might not throw enough passes to be able to be seriously voted on for the MVP, and it could be McCaffrey. So again, if you think the 49ers are going to win, and if you think they win because they put it on CMC's shoulders, plus 475 is very solid odds. And it's not like a quarterback wins it every single year. We do see exceptions to that. It's not all the time, but this is the type of team that they may need to do that. I also, for a prop, I love Christian McCaffrey going over 88.5 rushing yards. Now, he has at least 90 rushing yards in 7 of his last 8 games. The game he didn't go over was an easier win against Washington, a weird game on the road. Now, the Chiefs, we know, great pass defense, and you attack them on the ground. Again, as I said earlier, I don't think they can sell out to stop him because of the receiving weapons the 49ers have. And I do think Kyle Shanahan knows this is a shot to win a Super Bowl, and I think I'm trusting McCaffrey a lot more than I'm trusting Brock Purdy. Now, an interesting one is Isaiah Pacheco. The 66.5 yards, it's not a big number. And if this game is close, we've seen they're going to give him the ball a lot. Now they moved his rushing attempts up to like 17.5, and that's up from where it was like earlier in the playoffs, like 14.5. But I do think with the 49ers propensity to give up rushing yards, I think Pacheco can get one or two mid-range runs of 12 to 15 yards. And if he does that getting over 66.5 yards, even if it's 15 carries, I think his yards per carry on the other carries might be a bit problematic. But I think there are a couple of solid carries, and he has Pacheco 15 to 24 carries in his last 4 games. And he has at least 68 yards in his last 4 games, and this is not an oppressive matchup. So if you think the game's going to stay close, that's one to look at as well. I also like a prop for no interceptions at plus 350 odds. Patrick Mahomes has not thrown an interception in the playoffs. He's been taking great care of the football. And if you believe the 49ers, again, are going to put this on McCaffrey's shoulders and not Purdy so much, Purdy might not find himself in those situations where he's throwing too much and in bad situations. And so, again, he would be the one that would throw the interception. But if you think the game script is going to go the way of McCaffrey, plus 350 on no interception is not a terrible bet. Of course, any bet can lose. We know that. There's no such thing as a lock. We never proclaim there's one. Another fun one at plus 400 is Travis Kelce with 1 or more rush yards. They haven't been using that red zone. Well, a lot of them is a pass. So there's that as well. But occasionally he could be used on a run play. Now, a lot of those are just pop passes. So you know what? I'm actually going to take that one off the board because the more I think about it, that's not going to be a run play. So I'm going to take that one off and just let's move on. 49ers at plus 175 to score at least 1.5 rushing touchdowns. Now, if you think the 49ers are going to score 2 to 3 touchdowns in this game, again, that pass defense of the Chiefs is outstanding. And Christian McCaffrey, we see he gets a touchdown almost every game he plays. And this is a game where McCaffrey, if they're down there twice, they're going to trust him. And Purdy could run one in as well. Debo could run one in. Debo could run one in on a run play from longer distance too. So there's that as well. But I do think the odds of them rushing in for 1 point more, at least 2 touchdowns at plus 175, I do think that's a solid bet of cashing. And then the last one, Chris Jones, over 0.256. He just needs a half a sack or more at plus 110. So it's not like big odds. But again, the interior offensive line of the 49ers is not solid. There's a big mismatch for Jones. Jones always tends to show up in the biggest profile games. And if there are any obvious passing situations, he has a great opportunity rushing from the inside to get to Brock Purdy. All right, everybody, remember, Super Bowl Marathon Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and then Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have 58 guests going over to Super Bowl for Super Bowl 58. That's going to be quite the spectacle. And also, if you want my notes, go to the X at Jim Coventry NFL, and you'll see the pin to the profile. Just like and retweet that, and I will send you a link to read my game notes. There's that. And there's 36 pages of these notes. And also, if you have SiriusXM, tune in on Channel 87, Saturday and Sunday, 1 to 3 Eastern. Next week, we have the marathon again, Monday and Tuesday. I will run a Friday show, do one final talk through of this game. Everybody, thank you for hanging with me. Have a wonderful day. Good luck in your bets, and we will talk soon.